My fiancée said she was settling for me because her dream guy married rich, so I left her at the altar and blocked her entire family. I'm a 32-year-old man, and for the longest time I truly believed I had found my forever person. Her name was Vanessa. We met at this local volunteer cleanup drive 3 neighborhoods over. She was in charge of organizing supply kits, and I was just the guy handing out bottled water. She wasn't just beautiful, though she absolutely was. It was the way she made everyone feel seen. The older volunteers, the kids running around with trash bags twice their size, even me. I felt like I mattered when she looked at me. She cracked jokes like she'd known me for years. Her laugh? I still remember it echoing in that dusty parking lot like music. We bumped into each other again at a coffee shop a week later. She remembered my name. That small detail felt like a spark. One coffee turned into long evening walks, then weekend movie nights, and before I knew it, we were us. She was ambitious, always had big dreams. Fashion marketing, working with major brands, wanting to travel the world. Meanwhile, I was a high school history teacher who still lived modestly. But I loved my job. I loved the kids, the chaos, the meaning in it all. And Vanessa never made me feel like that wasn't enough, or at least that's what I thought. For 4 years, we grew together. Birthdays, family dinners, a shared apartment filled with mismatched furniture and inside jokes. I thought we were building something real, something lasting. So last summer, I got down on one knee at the place we first met, the same community parking lot, now lined with new trees, and I asked her to be my wife. She said yes. She cried. I cried, and for a moment I really believed love was all we needed. But love, it turns out, was never the problem. It's strange how, in hindsight, certain moments glow like warning lights, bright, obvious, impossible to ignore. But in the moment, you call it teasing. You call it nothing. It was about a year into our relationship. We were sitting on the couch watching a wedding reality show, some bride crying over dress fittings, and Vanessa offhandedly said, "Jason would have never let his wife wear anything less than Vera Wang." I asked, "Who's Jason?" She laughed. "Oh, just some guy I crushed on in college. His family was loaded. He ended up marrying some heiress. Big deal wedding. Like royal level stuff," I laughed along. I didn't think much of it. I mean, we all have our pasts, right? But then it kept happening. Vanessa had this habit of comparing things. My car versus what Jason used to drive. The tiny apartment we lived in versus the kind of house Jason's wife probably has. At first, it was framed as a joke, but jokes land differently when you're the punchline. Still, I brushed it off. She never said she wanted to be with him. She was with me. And besides, I wasn't insecure. I was stable, kind, loving. I may not have come from money, but I had loyalty and heart. That had to count for something. I remember once I surprised her with a weekend trip to a nearby lake cabin. She smiled politely, but later, I overheard her on the phone with her sister saying, "It was cute." Like budget cute, that one stung. But I told myself love wasn't about grand gestures. It was about showing up day after day. I believed that until one day, I realized I might have been the only one who did. Meeting Vanessa's family felt like stepping into a world where the rules were written in fine print I wasn't allowed to read. The first dinner was at her parents' house, a sprawling modern place with glass walls and silent staff. Her father, Richard, greeted me with a handshake so limp, I wondered if he knew I was a person. Her mother, Colleen, smiled the way you do at someone who's late to their own interview. I tried. God, I tried. I brought wine. I complimented the house. I asked thoughtful questions. But the whole evening was a subtle game of, guess what we think of you. At one point, Richard said, "So you're a teacher. Do you plan to eventually move into administration?" I smiled and said, "No, I love teaching. I think I'm exactly where I'm meant to be." He nodded, then looked at Vanessa and said, "Interesting." Colleen chimed in later. "Vanessa's always had big dreams. She's very driven. I just hope you can keep up with her pace." And then her sister, Kayla, laughed during dessert and said, "Wow, Vanessa, you've really taken the simple life route." They weren't insults, not outright. But every sentence dripped with backhanded expectation. Like I was on borrowed time. Like I was temporary. Afterward, I asked Vanessa if it bothered her. She shrugged. "They're just being themselves. Don't take it personally. They'll warm up," but they didn't. Every interaction afterward was the same. Surface smiles, buried condescension. Whenever I brought up the tension, Vanessa would say, "They'll come around after the wedding." Trust me, so I did, but somewhere deep inside I started to wonder. Was I the only one doing all the trusting? Weddings are supposed to be joyful. Stressful, sure, but joyful underneath it all. Ours felt like a business deal I couldn't afford to sign. Vanessa wanted a timeless venue. Translation: a downtown rooftop hotel with panoramic views and a 4-course plated dinner. Her mother insisted on a designer gown, not just a designer, but one that had dressed Hollywood stars. The florist alone cost more than 3 months of my salary. I had saved. I really had, but I couldn't match the scale her family envisioned. And instead of adjusting expectations, they turned to judgment. Richard offered to help financially, but only if I agreed to let Colleen handle most of the wedding planning. I said no, politely, but Vanessa accused me of being prideful. "You're making this harder than it has to be," she snapped during one fight. "They're trying to help. Why do you always have to be so stubborn?" I wanted to scream, "Because I'm not marrying your family. I'm marrying you." But even that started to feel untrue. More and more, I felt like a guest at my own wedding. Her family took over decisions. The color scheme changed without asking me. My side of the guest list was quietly trimmed to make space for their networking friends. Vanessa's tone changed too. She became sharper, colder, more critical. She once said, "This is the most important day of my life. I need it to be perfect. Is that so hard for you to understand?" It wasn't that I didn't understand. I just didn't recognize the woman standing in front of me anymore. I began to wonder what exactly we were planning, a wedding or a performance? And if it was the latter, who was I even playing? Her family threw a lavish wedding shower at a country club that looked like it belonged in a movie. Crystal chandeliers, waiters in tuxedos, champagne fountains. Everything felt so, not us. I tried to smile through it. I greeted her relatives, took photos, gave a polite little speech about love and commitment. But even as I spoke, I felt like an extra in someone else's fantasy. After the speeches, I stepped outside to breathe. That's when I heard it. 2 women, mid-conversation on the patio behind a hedged wall. One of them was Vanessa's aunt. I recognized her voice. She said, "Well, Vanessa could have had Jason, but he married that lawyer from his dad's firm. I guess this is what you do when you settle." The other woman chuckled. "At least the wedding will look expensive, even if the husband isn't." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I stood there, listening to strangers mock my entire existence as a punchline. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to confront them. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I went back inside, heart pounding, hands cold. I didn't tell Vanessa right away. But later that night, it boiled over. I asked her, carefully, if she had ever felt like she was settling. She rolled her eyes. "You're being paranoid." My aunt runs her mouth all the time. "Don't take it seriously." "But you didn't deny it," I said. She got quiet, then whispered, "Why would you ask me something like that before our wedding?" That silence said more than any scream. I laid next to her that night, wide awake, realizing something I hadn't dared to admit before. I loved a woman who might have loved someone else. More. A week after the wedding shower, Vanessa texted me while I was at work. "Hey babe, quick thing. My dad's lawyer wants you to review something before the weekend. Just paperwork. Don't stress." I came home that night to a thick envelope sitting on our kitchen counter. Inside was a prenuptial agreement. I didn't panic at first. I understood prenups. They could be practical, even smart. But as I read it, my heart started racing. It wasn't a mutual agreement. It was a list of rules. If we divorced, I'd get nothing. No access to shared assets, no claim to anything we built together. Not even the home her parents were helping us buy. And if she cheated, still no penalties. It was like they thought I was some kind of gold digger. I sat on the couch holding the papers, stunned. When Vanessa walked in, I held them up and asked, "What is this?" She looked tired. "Just standard stuff. My dad's being overly cautious. It doesn't mean anything." "It means everything," I said quietly. "You think I'm marrying you for money?" She exhaled sharply. "No, but you know how my family is. This is just insurance. Please don't make this a thing." I stared at her. This woman I planned a future with. Who used to bring me soup when I was sick. Who once cried during a Pixar movie because love was all that mattered. Now she was asking me to sign away my dignity just to prove I wasn't using her. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling and asked myself the question I'd been avoiding for months. If someone really saw you as their equal, would they ever treat you like a risk? It was 3 weeks before the wedding, and everything felt like it was closing in. The venue was locked, invitations were out, and money, so much money, was already spent. I felt trapped in a production I never agreed to direct. One night, we got into another argument. I don't even remember how it started. Probably something small, like the catering bill or me asking why we needed engraved crystal nameplates for the guests. But suddenly, she snapped. Her voice sharp and loud. "You think I wanted this life? Jason married rich. I got you." The words hit me like a slap I never saw coming. The room went still. Even she looked shocked that she'd said it. Her hand went to her mouth. I didn't mean that, she whispered. I'm stressed, okay? But there's a line you can't uncross once you speak it out loud. I stared at her. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt hollow. That's how you see me? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. No, she said quickly. It came out wrong. I was just venting. I'm under so much pressure, and you keep acting like everything's fine when it's not. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. I stood there, watching the woman I was supposed to marry, and all I could think was, I'm her consolation prize. She tried to hold me that night. I let her. But something in me had already started to shut down. A crack had formed, and I knew deep down it wouldn't seal. Not this time. After that night, something inside me broke, quietly but completely. She apologized again the next morning. Said she didn't mean it. Said it came from stress and pressure. That I was taking it too seriously. That I always overthink things, but I couldn't unhear the words. Jason married rich. I got you. It played on loop in my mind like a cruel little melody. At work, during lectures, I'd find myself zoning out mid-sentence, my students looking at me with concerned faces. At night, I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, counting the spaces between her breaths and wondering how we even got here. The apartment didn't feel like home anymore. Her touch didn't feel warm. Even her laugh, which once made my chest feel full, started to sound unfamiliar, like something she rehearsed for everyone else. I tried to bring it up again. Vanessa, I said one night, I need to ask you something, and I want you to really think before you answer. She looked up from her laptop. Okay. If Jason had proposed to you instead, would you have said yes? Her face froze. Just for a second, but I saw it. That pause, that flicker of something honest before the performance resumed. She forced a smile. That's a ridiculous question, but she never said no. I didn't push. I just nodded, then went to the other room and closed the door behind me. That night I slept on the couch, not because we argued, not because she told me to. I just couldn't be next to her, not after realizing I might have spent 4 years loving someone who was still grieving the man she didn't get. The rehearsal was supposed to be a formality. Walk the aisle, cue the music, smile for the cameras. Instead, it turned into a theater of control, criticism, and quiet humiliation. We arrived 10 minutes late. Not because I was careless, but because traffic was backed up from a nearby accident. Vanessa was already at the venue when I got there, pacing by the stage with her mother and maid of honor. The moment she saw me, her expression hardened. You couldn't plan ahead? It's your own wedding rehearsal, for God's sake, she snapped. I opened my mouth to explain, but she waved me off and turned to the coordinator. Let's just start. He's finally here. I stood there, in front of her entire family, her friends, even the photographer she insisted on hiring to capture behind-the-scenes moments, being treated like an inconvenience. The rehearsal was rushed. The music wasn't right, and Vanessa lost it on the coordinator, shouting, "How hard is it to press play on a track?" When I gently took her hand and said, "Babe, maybe take a breath," she yanked her hand back. "Don't tell me to calm down. This is supposed to be perfect, and you're standing there like you don't even care." Then, as if I wasn't even there, her mother leaned in and whispered, loud enough for others to hear, "This is why Jason would have been better." Everything stopped. I felt every eye shift to me. I didn't say a word. I didn't make a scene. I just swallowed the burn and stepped aside. That night, I sat in my car for 2 hours before going home. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared out the windshield and thought, this isn't a wedding. It's a warning. I always imagined the night before my wedding would be nervous but sweet, maybe a beer with my best friend. Maybe pacing the living room practicing vows. Instead, I sat alone in silence, staring at a glowing screen that shattered everything. Vanessa had left her iPad on the coffee table, unlocked. I wasn't snooping. I was going to play music to clear my head, something soft to calm my nerves. But when I tapped the screen, it opened to a group chat, her sister Kayla, her two bridesmaids. What I read didn't just hurt, it gutted me. He was so serious at rehearsal. I almost laughed. You're doing God's work, girl. Take the wedding pics, enjoy the gifts, and level up later. He's cute in a rescue puppy way. Just make it to the honeymoon, and then Vanessa. He's a starter husband. I'm getting the dream wedding. That's the win. I stopped breathing. I read the messages 3-4 times, thinking maybe I misunderstood. But I didn't. She didn't love me. Maybe she never had. I wasn't her partner. I was her placeholder. My hands shook. My stomach turned. I made it to the bathroom just in time to throw up. The kind of sick that comes from betrayal, not food. I sat on the cold tile floor for what felt like hours, the walls spinning around me. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the most painful night I've ever lived through. And somewhere between midnight and sunrise, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront her. I wouldn't scream or beg or explain. I would do exactly what she never expected me to. Leave. By 4 a.m., I had packed a single duffel bag, just essentials, a few clothes, passport, my old journal, and the watch my grandfather gave me. Everything else could stay. None of it mattered anymore. I sat on the edge of the bed watching Vanessa sleep. She looked peaceful, unaware. Maybe that's what hurt the most, how easily she rested while I sat in ruins beside her. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted out, but I needed one voice to steady me, so I called my mom. She answered groggily, "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" And I broke. The words poured out like floodwater, about the messages, the wedding shower, her parents, the way I felt like a shell of myself. She listened, silent, patient, then said something I'll never forget. You don't marry someone who makes you feel lucky to be tolerated. You marry someone who feels lucky to have you. That was it. That was the clarity I needed. I wrote Vanessa a letter. Not long, just enough. Vanessa, I've read how you truly feel. I deserve to know sooner. I won't be standing at the altar today, not because I hate you, but because I finally love myself enough to walk away. I hope you find what you're really looking for. But it isn't me. I left the letter on the kitchen counter, took one last look around the apartment we shared. Then I walked out, no big scene, no fireworks, just the sound of a front door closing quietly behind me, and a version of myself I never wanted to be. Finally letting go, I stayed off the grid that day. No phone, no email. I didn't even bring my laptop. Just me, a borrowed rental car, and the road. The ceremony was scheduled for 3 p.m. at the rooftop hotel Vanessa had obsessed over. White roses, glass chandeliers, a string quartet. Her family spared no expense. At 2:45 p.m., I imagined the guests had started to whisper. By 3:10, panic. Calls. Texts. Vanessa's first text came at 3:17. Where are you? Then another at 3:19. This isn't funny. People are asking questions. Then the call started. One after another. I watched the screen light up, then dim from where I sat in a diner an hour away, sipping black coffee I barely tasted. She got the letter. I know she did. A mutual friend later told me that someone handed it to her quietly, just as she was being walked toward the aisle. She read it on the spot, and then she lost it. Tears, screams, yelling at the coordinator. Accusing her sister of betrayal. Someone filmed it. Of course they did. It made its way to a private group chat that eventually leaked. I never reposted it, never even spoke about it. I didn't need to. The image of her standing in a $9,000 dress, surrounded by stunned guests, holding a folded piece of paper like it was a death sentence, that was enough. I wasn't cruel. I just chose myself, for once. And in the silence that followed, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, relief. The moment I got back home, well, to a friend's guest room, I turned on my phone and watched it explode. 46 missed calls. Over 100 texts, Vanessa, her mom, her sister, even distant cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. I didn't read them, not one. I opened my contacts and one by one I hit block. Vanessa tried calling from different numbers. She left voicemails, some sobbing, some angry. I didn't mean any of it. "You humiliated me. Please talk to me. I'm begging you." Then her mom messaged me directly. "Be a man. Come fix this." That made me laugh. Actually laugh, sitting there on a mattress on the floor, a duffel bag beside me, and no clue what came next. Be a man? I finally was one. I stood up for myself. I walked away from a life where I was just a placeholder. I deleted social media, took a leave from work, packed up what little I had, and booked a solo trip to Lisbon. No ring, no guilt, just air. The first night there, I walked along the cobblestone streets, past lantern-lit alleys and the sound of distant fado music, and I breathed, not out of sadness, but because I could, no pressure, no comparisons. No wondering whether I was enough, I blocked everyone. Every last one of them. No explanations. No closure, not because I didn't have things to say, but because sometimes silence is the only thing loud enough to be heard. It didn't take long for Vanessa's family to spin their version of the story. A week after the wedding that wasn't, I started hearing whispers through mutuals, friends who hadn't picked sides fast enough. Apparently, I'd had a mental breakdown, or maybe I was cheating, or maybe I had commitment issues all along. Classic damage control. I expected that, but then came the real twist. Someone, I still don't know who, leaked screenshots of the group chat. The one I read the night before I walked, not just to friends. To the entire wedding guest list, every petty comment, every joke about me being a starter husband, every message mocking the life we were building, it spread like wildfire. People started texting me, some apologizing, others stunned. One of Vanessa's bridesmaids even messaged saying, "I wanted to say something. I didn't know how." Too late, and suddenly, their narrative collapsed. Her family went quiet. Vanessa deleted her Instagram for a while. Funny how quickly the truth does what revenge never could. I didn't need to scream or post a thread or tell my side. All I had to do was keep walking. Let the weight of their own words bury them. There was a part of me that wanted to gloat, to screenshot their messages and send them back with a middle finger. But I didn't. Instead, I sat on a rooftop in Lisbon one night, drinking cheap red wine and journaling. I wrote, "She tried to write my ending." I took back the pen, and just like that, the silence that used to feel like grief started to feel like freedom. About 3 months later, I was back home. A little tanner, a lot lighter. I'd moved into a small place on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Quiet, clean, peaceful. I hadn't spoken to anyone from Vanessa's orbit since I left. I didn't plan to. But one night, as I was grading papers with a jazz playlist humming in the background, a message popped up in my inbox. It was from Jason, that Jason, the dream guy. We'd never talked before, just seen each other in pictures or heard each other's names in passing. I opened the message out of pure curiosity. "Hey, this might seem weird, but I felt like I should reach out. I heard what happened with Vanessa. I want you to know, you're not crazy. She tried the same with me a while back. Messaged me after my wedding. Said she regretted letting me go. I blocked her. What you did? Walking away like that? That was brave, man. Real brave." I stared at the screen for a long time, then started laughing. Like full body, breathless kind of laughing, because all this time she was pining for a man who didn't even want her back. All that effort to make me feel like I wasn't enough. And I'd been the one who escaped. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Jason's message didn't give me closure. It confirmed something deeper. I hadn't lost her. I dodged her, and suddenly everything that used to ache just stopped. It's been over a year now. No dramatic final conversation. No public call-outs. Just silence and healing. I never saw Vanessa again. Never heard from her after the group chat leak and the wedding debacle went viral. Last I heard, she moved to a different city and started working at some PR firm. Fitting, I guess. As for me, I'm still teaching. Still driving the same car. Still living a pretty modest life by most standards. But here's the difference. I don't feel small anymore. I stopped questioning if I was enough. If I had done something wrong. If I should have tried harder. Because now I know, love isn't about impressing someone's family or fitting into their fantasy. It's about respect. It's about showing up with your whole heart and being met with gratitude, not judgment. And if someone makes you feel like loving them is a favor you should be thankful for, run, you're not hard to love. You're just loving the wrong person. Sometimes the best thing you can do isn't fight for someone. It's walk away from them. I think back to that night before the wedding, sitting alone on the cold tile, shaking from betrayal, and I wish I could go back in time and whisper to that broken version of me, "You're going to be okay. One day this pain will become your power." And you know what? It did. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm free, and next time, if there is a next time, I won't be asking if I'm good enough for them. I'll be asking if they're good enough for me.